There is something you need to understand about Alexandra Eala before we talk about what happened in Madrid. In October 2023, she walked onto a court in Monastir, Tunisia, ranked 196th in the world, and ran into Elise Mertens. The Belgian dismantled her. 7-5 in the first set, then 6-love in the second. A bagel. The kind of score that doesn't just beat you, it erases you. Eala was 19 months away from cracking the top 50, 2 years away from standing in the Caja Magica with a different body and a different mind. But in that Tunisian afternoon, she was just a kid from the Philippines who had been told, firmly and publicly, where the line was. And the line was Elise Mertens. So when the Madrid Open draw dropped on April 20th and Eala's path led straight to Mertens in the round of 64, every tennis mind in the building did the same mental arithmetic. Mertens was the 19th seed, the world number 1 in doubles. A 30-year-old with 10 career titles and a game built on the kind of tactical patience that eats young players alive. Eala was 44th in the world, riding a career season but dragging a clay court record that looked like a warning label. 3 wins in her last 10 matches on the surface, a career win rate on dirt barely scraping 39%, and consecutive early exits in Linz and Stuttgart in the 2 weeks before Madrid. The smart money, the historical data, the head-to-head, everything pointed one direction. And yet, let's rewind even further. Because the reason this match matters so much has almost nothing to do with rankings or seedings. It has to do with a grandfather and a country club in the Philippines and a left-handed girl who was hitting tennis balls before she could read. Roberto Maniego, Papa Lolo, Alex called him, started coaching her when she was 3.5. Not at some gleaming academy with biometric tracking and sports psychologists on retainer. At local courts in Manila, alongside her brother, as a family activity that slowly became something else entirely. For nearly a decade, this was Eala's tennis universe. One coach, one court, one country where professional tennis infrastructure essentially did not exist. The Philippines has never produced a top 50 singles player. It has never hosted a WTA event above the 125 level until this January. The pipeline that fed Sinner through Italy and Alcaraz through Spain and Goff through American junior development, that pipeline does not exist for Filipino kids. Alex Eala built her own. In 2018, at 13 years old, she won Les Petits as in Tarbes, France, the most prestigious under-14 tournament in the world. A title that had previously been won by Rafael Nadal, by Martina Hingis, by Kim Clijsters, by Jelena Ostapenko. The Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca saw the result and reached out. Within months, Eala had left her family, left the country where she'd learned to play, and moved to a Spanish island to train on red clay. She was 13. Think about that for a moment. 13 years old, 8,000 kilometers from home, in a new language at an academy designed around the most physically demanding surface in tennis, the one surface that would, years later, become the single biggest problem in her professional game. The irony is almost literary. She moved to Spain to train on clay, she grew up on clay court facilities, and yet clay became the wall she kept hitting. The junior career that followed was legitimately brilliant. She won the 2020 Australian Open Girls Doubles. She won the 2022 US Open Girls Singles, beating the second seed Lucy Havlikova in the final, the first Filipina to win a Grand Slam junior title. These results suggested a player who could handle pressure, who could win when it mattered, who had the competitive architecture to translate talent into trophies. What they didn't reveal was the serve. Every honest conversation about Alex Eala arrives at the serve eventually. Andrea Petkovic said it directly on Tennis Channel earlier this year. The serve is the one thing standing between Eala and the top 10. When it's working, when she's placing first serves above 60% and finding her spots, she can beat anyone. She proved that in Miami last year. She proved it against Iga Swiatek, against Madison Keys, against Jelena Ostapenko. But when the first serve percentage dips, when she's living on her second delivery, the math changes brutally. Her second serve is attackable. Not just attackable, targetable. The best returners on tour know it, they scout it, and on clay, Where the surface gives the returner an extra half-second to load up, the problem compounds. This is why clay has been so difficult. It is not that Eala lacks the movement or the tactical brain for the surface. It's that clay magnifies the serve problem by slowing the ball through the air, giving opponents more time to tee off on anything short or predictable. On hard courts, she can get away with a weaker first delivery because the surface preserves pace. On clay, there is no hiding. Every fragility in her service motion gets amplified, and the best clay quarters have been punishing it. Linz, 2 weeks before Madrid, told the story in miniature. Eala opened with a clean win over Julia Grabher. Her serve actually looked good, 60% first serve, 90% of break points saved. Then she drew Ostapenko in the second round. She led 5-1 in the second set. 5-1. She was serving for the chance to force a decider. And Ostapenko, who hits the ball like someone settling a personal grudge, went nuclear. 41 winners to Eala's 9. 6 consecutive games to close the match. The Latvian found Eala's second serve, camped on it, and hit through it like it wasn't there. The 5-1 lead evaporated not because Eala lost her nerve, but because her delivery couldn't protect the advantage her returning had earned. Stuttgart was worse. 1-6, 4-6 against Leylah Fernandez. A straight-set loss that felt like confirmation rather than aberration. 2 clay events, 2 early exits, and now she was heading to Madrid carrying the kind of form line that makes coaches lose sleep. But Madrid has always been different for Eala. It's the only clay tournament where she's shown she can compete with players ranked above her. In 2024, as a wild card ranked outside the top 100, she beat Lesia Tsurenko from a set down 2-6, 6-4, 6-4 for her first-ever WTA 1000 match win. In 2025, she ran into Swiatek in the second round and lost, but the experience of playing on that stage, in that atmosphere, against that level of opposition, clearly left a mark. Madrid's altitude, roughly 650 meters above sea level, does strange things to the tennis ball. It flies faster through the thinner air. The bounce is higher, more erratic. Topspin behaves differently. For a player whose game is built on taking the ball early, on stepping inside the baseline and redirecting pace, Madrid's physics are more forgiving than the slow, heavy clay of Stuttgart or the controlled conditions of most European clay events. And then there is the crowd. This is not a small factor. Eala plays her matches in Madrid in front of a wall of Filipino fans who travel from across Europe and beyond to fill the stands. The energy they bring is unlike anything else on the WTA Tour. Coco Gauff has commented on it. Jessica Pegula has commented on it. It is loud, it is relentless, it is deeply personal in a way that most tennis audiences cannot replicate because most tennis audiences are not watching the only player their country has ever produced at this level. Eala feeds on it. She has said so herself, switching from English to Spanish in her on-court interview after the Pavlyuchenkova win, telling the Madrid crowd that she feels at home here, that the years she spent in Spain make this place feel like hers. The Pavlyuchenkova match on April 22nd was supposed to be straightforward, and it was. 6-3, 6-3. The Russian was hampered by fitness problems, took 2 medical timeouts, and was never really in the match. But what mattered was not the margin of victory. What mattered was Eala's body language. She claimed 76% of points on her first serve. She broke early and held firm. She played defensive tennis when she needed to, absorbed pace when Pavlyuchenkova was at her most dangerous in the opening games, and then imposed herself once the physical issues surfaced. The serve numbers were solid. Not spectacular, but solid. The second serve point percentage was still concerning, 37%, but the first serve placement was sharp, and the return game was, as always, elite. Now, Mertens. Here is what makes this matchup so compelling, and it goes beyond the revenge narrative from Monastir. Elise Mertens is not a power player. She does not try to blow you off the court. She is, in many ways, the opposite, a tactician, a constructor, someone who builds points like an architect builds rooms, each shot designed to create the angle for the next one. She reads the game as well as anyone on tour. Her backhand slice is one of the best in women's tennis. Her net game is refined. She is the #1 doubles player in the world for a reason. She changes pace, she changes direction, she forces you into decisions and then punishes the wrong ones. Against a young, aggressive player like Eala, Mertens' instinct will be to slow the match down, to draw Eala into longer rallies, to deny her the pace she wants to redirect, to turn the court into a chessboard where experience and patience are rewarded more than speed and explosiveness. This is what she does. This is what she has always done. And on clay, where the surface naturally slows the ball, the strategy is even more effective. But Mertens in 2026 is not the Mertens of 2023. Her season has been uneven. She entered Madrid with a 12-7 record, respectable, but hardly dominant. In Stuttgart the week before, she beat Elise Eala in the first round 6-3, 6-4, and then ran into Karolina Muchova in the round of 16. Mertens won the first set 6-1. She was in total control. Then she lost the next 2 sets 6-3, 6-0. A collapse of that magnitude, winning the first set 6-1 and then losing 12 of the next 15 games, reveals something about the engine, about the reserves that are or are not available when the match turns difficult. Her Miami swing was similarly mixed, a second-round loss to Sorana Cîrstea after beating Elvina Khaliva, and an early exit at Indian Wells against Belinda Bencic. Mertens is no longer the player who can grind through any opponent over 3 sets purely on the back of consistency. The margins are thinner now. The physical reserves that allowed her to play deep into tournaments and recover between matches are harder to summon at 30. This matters because Eala, whatever her limitations, is 20 years old and physically improving week to week. The training at the Nadal Academy this April, she returned to Mallorca specifically to work on her clay court game before the European swing, has been focused on exactly the kind of lateral movement and point construction she needs on this surface. Her coach has been retooling her approach, trying to build patterns that protect the serve by shortening points on her service games and extending them on return. The return game is where Eala can hurt Mertens most. Mertens' serve is functional but not dominant. She averaged around 95 miles per hour on her first delivery in Stuttgart, and her second serve sits in the mid-70s. Against a returner of Eala's caliber, those numbers are invitations. Eala has built her reputation on the return. In Miami 2025, her return games against Swiatek were some of the best tennis anyone played all season. She stands close to the baseline, takes the ball on the rise, and redirects it with angles that force the server into immediate defense. If she can apply that same pressure to Mertens' delivery in Madrid, she can negate the Belgian's ability to construct points from a position of comfort. The question, and it is always the same question with Eala on clay, is what happens when she's serving. Can she hold frequently enough to let her return game decide the match? In the Pavlyuchenkova win, she held well but was not seriously tested. Mertens will test her. Mertens will sit back on second serves, slice returns low, and force Eala to come forward or generate pace from a neutral position. If Eala's first serve percentage drops below 55, the match could turn ugly in the same way Monastir turned ugly, Mertens gaining an early break, settling into a rhythm, and suffocating Eala's ability to play freely. But here is the piece of the equation that the numbers cannot capture. Eala in 2023 and Eala in 2026 are functionally different tennis players. Not just in ranking from 196 to 44, but in the psychological infrastructure that allows a player to believe she belongs in a high-stakes moment. The Miami run changed something that cannot be quantified. Beating 3 Grand Slam champions in a single tournament on a wild card from outside the top 100, that does not just pad your ranking. It rewires your self-concept. Every close match after that, every tight set, every moment when the scoreboard is against you, you carry the evidence that you've done the improbable before. Mertens will not have seen this version of Eala up close. Their only match was 30 months and several lifetimes ago. The scouting report from Monastir, that Eala could be overwhelmed in the second set, that pressure on her serve would compound, may still contain some truth, but it is dangerously incomplete. The Eala who blew a 5-1 lead against Ostapenko and Linz 2 weeks ago is the same player who rallied from 2-6 down to beat Serenko at this exact tournament 2 years ago. She contains both results. She is volatile, yes. But volatility in a player with elite ceilings is not the same thing as fragility. The Madrid altitude helps her. The court speed helps her. The crowd, which will be overwhelmingly in her corner, helps her. None of these factors guarantee anything. Mertens is a savvy, battle-hardened competitor who knows how to manage atmosphere, who knows how to absorb early pressure and redirect it over the course of a tour match. She has forgotten more about managing match situations than most players Eala's age have ever learned. But this is why this particular match, on this particular day, in this particular place, feels different from the numbers on paper. Because Eala is not walking onto the court with a 39% clay win rate as her primary identity. She is walking onto the court as the player who beat Swiatek, who reached a WTA 1000 semifinal as a wildcard, who has been trained since age 13 on the same Mallorcan clay that produced the greatest clay court player in history. She is walking on with a grandfather's memory sitting somewhere behind every forehand, with a country watching on screens across 12 time zones, and with a serve that might betray her or might, for 70 minutes or 90 minutes or 2 hours, hold just firm enough to let the rest of her game do what it has always been capable of doing. Mertens will know the plan. Slow the rallies. Target the second serve. Force Eala to generate rather than redirect. It is a sound plan. It was a sound plan in Monastir. But plans built on who a player used to be have a shelf life. And Eala has been changing faster than the scouting reports can keep up. The question entering April 24th is not whether the Filipina can win on clay. She has already answered that in this city on these courts, from a set down 2 years ago. The question is whether she can win against a player specifically designed to neutralize everything she does well. And the honest answer is that nobody knows. Not her coaching team, not Mertens, not the algorithms, not the bookmakers. The only people who seem certain are the Filipino fans already lining up outside the Aranza Sanchez Vicario Stadium, holding flags they brought from halfway around the world, convinced that what they are about to witness is not an upset, but an inevitability that the rest of tennis simply hasn't caught up to yet. There is a kind of belief that exists outside evidence. It is not blind. It has watched the Monastir loss and the Ostapenko collapse and the Stuttgart drubbing and absorbed all of it without blinking. It is the belief of people who have been waiting a very long time for someone who looks like them to stand on a court like this and refuse to be small. Alex Eala carries that. She carries the weight of it and the fuel of it in equal measure. And tomorrow, under thin Madrid air and red Spanish clay, she will step across the baseline and find out whether the player she has become is enough for the moment the draw has handed her. Mertens is prepared for the Alex Eala she remembers. But memory is a poor coach. And Madrid, this time of year, has a habit of rewriting the things we thought we knew.